They saw her as part of the furniture, a background hum in their opulent lives. Clara Hayes, 52, moved through the sprawling hallways of the prestigious Blackwood Foundation like a phantom, her presence acknowledged only when a vase needed dusting or a spilled coffee cup required swift disappearance. For 20 years, she had been the unseen caretaker, polishing the antique mahogany, replacing fresh flowers in vast, echoing rooms, and ensuring every surface gleamed for the visionaries and philanthropists who ran the institution. Blackwood Foundation was famous for its charitable work, particularly its highly publicized initiatives for community upliftment and diversity scholarships in underserved neighborhoods, including Clara's own. But Clara, with eyes that saw far more than dust motes, had long sensed a discordant note beneath Blackwood's harmonious facade. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth. Her day began before dawn, the silence of the grand halls broken only by the hum of her cleaning cart and the soft brush of her duster. She knew every secret creak of the floorboards, every hidden alcove, every hushed conversation carried on the morning breeze before the staff arrived. She heard the forced laughter, the clipped, dismissive tones when certain names were mentioned. She saw the diversity flyers with smiling, hand-picked faces that never seemed to reflect the true desperation of the communities Blackwood claimed to serve. She noticed the pattern: impressive public grants announced with fanfare, followed by the quiet reallocation of funds. Always just enough to keep up appearances, never enough to truly change lives. The scholarship students from her neighborhood always seemed to vanish after a semester or two, replaced by fresh, hopeful faces for the next photo op. It was a cycle of exploitation, dressed in the guise of charity. The knot of unease in Clara's stomach tightened with each passing year, fueled by the stories she heard from home. Friends whose applications for Blackwood's support programs were mysteriously rejected, bright kids denied scholarships without explanation. She knew the truth, not from documents or board meetings, but from the raw, lived experience of her community. But what could a caretaker do against a powerful institution run by men like Arthur Blackwood III, the foundation's charismatic CEO, whose public image was built on benevolence? The turning point came with the annual Future Leaders Gala. Clara was assigned to clean Arthur Blackwood's private study, a room rarely accessed. As she meticulously polished the vast oak desk, she heard voices from the adjacent, usually soundproof conference room. The door was ajar, ever so slightly. Arthur Blackwood's voice, usually so smooth and cultured, was sharp, almost venomous. "The optics, Gerald, are critical. We need some diversity faces, but not too many. We can't actually dilute the quality of our recipients, just enough to keep the donors happy and silence the activists." Another voice, which Clara recognized as Gerald Finch, the head of the scholarship committee, chuckled. "Indeed, Arthur. The optics budget is far more important than the actual scholarship fund. We divert half of the Inner City Youth Initiative, too. Administrative overhead. No one questions it. They just see the photo ops." Clara froze, duster in hand, her breath hitched. She had suspected, but to hear it, bald and unashamed. It wasn't just neglect. It was deliberate, calculated fraud. And it was racist. They were dangling false hope, siphoning funds meant for her community, all while maintaining a pristine public image. A cold fury settled deep within her. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly as she activated the voice recorder. She knew the risk that if caught, she'd lose her job, maybe more. But the faces of the children in her neighborhood, the desperate hope in their parents' eyes, flashed before her. She had to do something. She continued her cleaning, moving slowly, deliberately, her every nerve acutely aware of the hushed, incriminating conversation just feet away. She captured more than just casual remarks. She recorded detailed plans, financial figures, cynical strategies to manipulate public perception while actively undermining the very communities they claimed to support. The recordings were chilling in their casual cruelty. For weeks, Clara continued her work, appearing as docile and invisible as ever. But now, she carried a hidden weight and a growing resolve. Each day, she looked for opportunities, often leaving her phone strategically placed, its tiny microphone a silent witness. She documented not just words, but patterns of behavior. The sudden disappearance of minority candidates from hiring lists, the preferential treatment of certain contractors with ties to the board, the blatant dismissal of genuine concerns raised by the few non-white staff members. She became a silent archivist of injustice. But what would she do with this explosive truth? And who would ever believe just a caretaker over the esteemed Blackwood Foundation? The very system designed to protect itself was what she aimed to expose. The recordings felt like a physical weight in Clara's hand, a dangerous, burning truth. They were more than just files on a phone. They were the silenced cries of her community, the shattered dreams of countless young people, all packed into digital whispers. Fear was a cold, sharp claw in her chest. She was Clara Hayes, the caretaker, the ghost in the gilded halls. What credibility did she have against Arthur Blackwood III, a man whose name graced hospital wings and university endowments? He wielded power that could crush her, erase her, make her disappear from a world that barely noticed her to begin with. For days, she moved through her routine at the foundation with an almost suffocating sense of paranoia. Every polite nod from a board member felt like a scrutinizing gaze, every casual comment a veiled threat. She imagined eyes following her, hands reaching for her phone, every shadow concealing a spy. Sleep offered no escape, only restless nights haunted by the smooth, cynical voices of Blackwood and Finch, their words echoing the devastating casualness of their deceit. Her grandmother, frail but sharp as ever, noticed her distant gaze. Trouble got a smell to it, Clara, she'd observed one evening, her eyes wise and knowing. And you smell like trouble. Clara knew she couldn't go to the police, not immediately. Blackwood's influence stretched far and wide, likely even into the local precinct. She couldn't risk the recordings being dismissed, twisted, or worse, confiscated and then lost. She needed an ally, someone outside Blackwood's reach, someone who understood the subtle, systemic nature of the racism she aimed to expose. Her mind turned to Elara Vance. Elara wasn't family, but she was a rising star in community activism, a young, fiery lawyer who ran a small, underfunded legal aid clinic in their neighborhood. Elara had always been skeptical of Blackwood's charity, often frustrated by the opaque application processes for their funds. She was sharp, fearless, and utterly committed to her people. But even Elara seemed tiny against the behemoth of the Blackwood Foundation. Clara decided on a discreet approach. She called Elara from a payphone in a quiet corner of the neighborhood, a relic of a bygone era, feeling safer than using her own mobile. Elara, she began, her voice low, almost a whisper. It's Clara Hayes. I have something important. Something about Blackwood Foundation. Can we meet? Somewhere very private. Elara, usually so quick with a quip, sensed the urgency in Clara's tone. Clara? Of course. My office, after hours. Say 9 tonight. The meeting was tense, conducted under the flickering fluorescent light of Elara's tiny office. Clara, usually so composed, fidgeted with her hands. Elara, she started, I've worked at Blackwood for 20 years. I've seen things, heard things. Then she pressed play. The cynical voices of Arthur Blackwood III and Gerald Finch filled the small room, their words painting a chilling picture of calculated racial bias and financial manipulation. Elara's eyes widened with each damning phrase. Her usual quick wit vanished, replaced by a stunned, simmering rage. When the recording ended, a heavy silence descended. Clara, Elara breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. This is explosive. This isn't just unethical. This is criminal. This is fraud. This is a direct assault on our community. The initial shock gave way to a surge of shared determination. Elara knew the legal landscape. She understood the power dynamics. This won't be easy, Elara warned, her voice hardening. Blackwood will come for you. They'll try to discredit you, destroy your reputation. They'll say you're disgruntled, a thief, anything to bury this. We need to be strategic. We need more than just audio. We need to corroborate. Over the next few weeks, Clara became a silent spy within the foundation. She continued her duties, but now with a purpose beyond mere cleaning. She subtly photographed documents on desks when no one was looking, a quick snap of a budget sheet, a hurried shot of a seemingly innocuous memo that, combined with the recordings, painted an even darker picture. She noted dates, names, and specific conversations. Her ordinary routine became a masterclass in covert operation. Every removed dust bunny, every polished surface was a silent act of defiance. The subtle racism she'd endured for decades now fueled her every move. The pressure mounted. Arthur Blackwood began to show up unexpectedly in areas Clara was cleaning, his gaze lingering a moment too long. Gerald Finch started asking casual, probing questions about her work hours, her routines. The air in the foundation grew thick with unspoken suspicion. Clara felt the walls closing in, the risk amplifying with every passing day. She knew they were starting to look for the leak. She also knew she had to act before they found it, and her. The tension inside Clara was a taut wire, humming with electricity. She and Alara, the fiery young lawyer, had meticulously pieced together every fragment of evidence. The chilling audio recordings, the clandestine photographs of documents, and Alara's own research into the Foundation's dubious financial trails. They knew going to the local authorities was a trap. Instead, Alara, leveraging her contacts, secured a meeting with a seasoned investigative journalist from a major national newspaper, a reporter known for her unflinching pursuit of truth, even against powerful institutions. The exposé hit like a seismic shockwave. Front-page headlines screamed, Blackwood Foundation exposed. Billions meant for minority, youth diverted in shocking racial fraud. The article didn't just quote the recordings, it meticulously detailed the money trails, the systematic denial of opportunities, and the deliberate creation of a false public image. The recordings, released simultaneously to the public, were damning. Arthur Blackwood III's smooth, cultured voice, once synonymous with philanthropy, now echoed with casual malice, laying bare his calculated prejudice and greed. Gerald Finch's cynical chuckles sounded like nails on a coffin. The public outcry was immediate and deafening. Shareholders demanded investigations. Donors, horrified, threatened to pull funds. The media descended upon Blackwood Foundation like a flock of vultures. Arthur Blackwood III, caught completely off guard, tried to deny, to deflect, to discredit. He branded Clara a disgruntled, opportunistic employee with a vendetta, but the sheer volume and undeniable nature of the evidence, coupled with Alara's articulate explanations of the deep-seated systemic racism, made his words hollow. The FBI, bypassing the compromised local authorities, launched a full-scale federal investigation. Within weeks, warrants were issued. Clara watched from her humble apartment window as news vans swarmed the pristine gates of the Blackwood Foundation. Arthur Blackwood III, his face pale and contorted with rage and disbelief, was led out in handcuffs, his once impeccable suit now looking like a shroud. Gerald Finch, equally undone, followed shortly after. The empire built on lies and stolen hope crumbled in a matter of days. The ensuing trials were swift and merciless. The secret recordings, Clara's meticulous notes, and Alara's sharp legal mind presented an irrefutable case. Arthur Blackwood III and Gerald Finch were found guilty of multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Their convictions sent a clear, thunderous message across the nation. No one, no matter how powerful, was above the law, especially when their crimes were cloaked in racial prejudice. But the justice didn't stop there. The Blackwood Foundation, under new, genuinely ethical leadership, was entirely restructured. Billions of dollars, once siphoned off, were now redirected as intended. New, robust scholarship programs were launched, truly benefiting the underserved youth from Clara's community. The applications were now transparent, and the funds flowed directly to those who needed them most. A new community center, grander and more vibrant than the one burned, began construction, funded by the very wealth that had once sought to oppress. It was a beacon of true progress, a monument to a community's resilience. Clara Hayes was no longer invisible. She was celebrated, not just as a whistleblower, but as a hero. Offers poured in from speaking engagements, book deals, even consulting roles for organizations seeking to genuinely address systemic inequalities. She politely declined most of them, preferring the quiet dignity of her own home. Yet, her voice, once unheard, now carried immense weight. She became an informal advisor to the new foundation leadership, ensuring true equity and accountability. One afternoon, sitting on her porch with her grandmother, the old woman squeezed her hand, her eyes filled with pride. "You made waves, child," she said, a soft smile gracing her lips. "And the water's clear now." Clara smiled back, a deep, contented peace settling over her. She had been just a caretaker, but her courage, her refusal to look away, had not only brought down a racist system, but had opened a new dawn of justice for her community. The shadows had been exposed, and in their place, a powerful, radiant truth now shone.